order. Do need motion to adopt the agenda, please. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as printed there. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 3.0, approval of minutes. Few meetings there.
Second.
Moved to a seconded to approve those minutes as printed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. 4.0, consideration of bills and warrants.
Just a quick question. I've asked this question before, but I just want to make sure. Uniforms like girls' basketball, those are on a cycle?
Right, those
And
are on
they're
a.
2 year?
I'm not sure. Olivia and I talked about that. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years,
Okay.
but it's a cycle.
Could you get back to us on that?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on the bills and warrants?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the bills and warrants. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 5.0, hearing of requests and suggestions of citizens and organizations. Is there anyone not already on the agenda that would like to address the board? Okay, please step forward, state your name, and you will have 5 minutes to talk about your topic.
Thank you. My name is Sherry Schenker, and I'm a McCune parent. I was here a few months ago to request a bus stop in McCune, and I hadn't heard back, so I wanted to come in since now we've had a chance to start school and kind of deal with all of the challenges we're all dealing with again this year that I'm sure we were all hoping we wouldn't have to deal with this year. But I think we've had a pretty good start to the school year, and now that things have settled down a little bit, I'm hoping that we can revisit this. We have several parents in McCune, some of which are with me today, that would like to request that bus stop to be there in town on city-owned property that is already being used as a bus stop by another school district, Oswego School District, and also being used as a bus stop by one of the local churches. So it's a very well-lit, very safe environment that is not on a public highway. Buses, it was designed for buses because it's part of the old McCune school area. And it also has a place for bicycle parking, car parking, away from the bus parking, and covered benches for students to sit at if they are walkers while they're waiting for the bus to get there. So I wanted to bring that back to your attention and kind of see where we were at on that.
Okay. Does the board have any comments on that? Okay. So we do have that item on our agenda tonight, 9.1, discussion of the eastern boundary bus stop. So we will be discussing that later on the agenda. I don't have any further questions or comments about it until we get to that agenda item.
Are there any questions that we can help answer about that as parents?
Actually, how many total students are there, or do you have?
Right now, there are 3 students that drive all the way out to the fire station. Because of work schedules, it makes it very difficult to either be late for work or change your work schedule and then drive several miles into USD 503 territory to meet at a fire station on the highway to have your kids board the bus. So some parents are right now having to opt to drive them into town so they can get to work on time. If we had that bus stop in town where kids can walk there and walk home afterwards, it's going to make it a whole lot easier on those kids and those parents. I can, just off the top of my head, think of potentially another 4 to 6 students that affects. In addition to several other students that would very much like to come to USD 503, but busing is a serious issue. If your work schedule doesn't allow for you to drive several miles into somebody else's territory and park there for anywhere from 5 minutes, well, today I think we waited on the bus over 20 minutes because they were just kind of running late. That can be really tricky. So. And most of us don't really feel like it's safe to leave our kids there at an unmanned fire station on Highway 400 while we go on to work. I'm not sure who would think, it's just not a good idea.
Anything further from the board here?
is anybody else going to speak?
I'm gonna,
Okay.
when she's done, we'll see.
Okay.
Thank you very much for
Okay.
your consideration
All right,
and your
thank you.
time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't even recognize.
Anyone else in the crowd that would like to speak, address the board?
That baby says no. That baby says I'm.
Okay, sorry. Hello, I am not currently have my kids, but I have
Please,
four.
please state your name, ma'am.
Athena Sue.
Okay, all right,
I'm currently going over to Southeast.
okay,
I've been really unhappy there, but the busing is more convenient than coming to Parsons. And I've been looking into it to come to Parsons so I can transfer all four of my school-age children over there. I haven't yet because mostly the busing. And then I just had a preschooler start and I didn't want to ship half of them to Parsons and then the preschooler be on a completely different schedule with getting on and off the bus. I'd have to make multiple trips.
okay, all right,
That's the only thing really holding me back at this point.
okay, all right. Any further comment or questions from the board here? Okay, thank you for your time. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we will move on to item 6.0, report of the superintendent of schools.
All right, so today is September 20th, which is officially Count Day. And Count Day is, our general fund budget is determined by taking, well, based on the number of kids that we have attend, and we count starting today. So preliminarily, we were at 1303 this morning. So that's higher than where we ended the year last year. But when we started last year, we were at about 1310. So that'll be adjusted between head count and then actually the adjusted weighted enrollment once we have had a week or so and gotten all of that, taking care of that attendance, those things, that all builds into the principal's building report card, which then is a part of the superintendent's organizational report. So those things are out and all of that is happening. So the COVID update, thought I'd give you an update. I wanted to show you on our website. You can go to our website, scroll right down to the bottom. Let's hope I can get this to work on TV. Yes. And then right here, you can click on COVID-19 information. And this is going to show you our district COVID numbers for the week ending. So every Friday, we just send it out. These are the number of new staff cases and new student cases. So prior to today, we'd had one staff case since school had started, one positive staff, and 3 positive students, okay? And we did receive today a call that we had a positive staff member and a positive student. So that'll change that. Then there'll be some numbers in there the week of the 24th as well. So that is all just right there for people to see. And then I wanted to show you this, exposure guidelines for students. This is for parents. They can go and look to see, what do I do? This is just a quick reference. If you're experiencing symptoms, if you have a positive test result, if you have a known exposure to a COVID positive, it's all right there, okay? So it's just a quick little spot that people can go to. So currently, we do have 1 staff member and 1 student that are positive.
So clarify a term for me. Some school districts call some of a dashboard. Is this what you call a dashboard?
It could be.
I don't know what a dashboard is.
Yeah, I don't really either. I mean, this could be considered
So
that.
all you're saying is we have a site on the school
Yes.
page that,
This would be a dashboard with one gauge.
Right,
Okay,
one
if you look at
gauge.
the dashboard on your car, you got multiple gauges on some of them and so
okay,
forth.
so it's just a generic term.
It is, yeah. So you would just go to the regular website and click on that COVID-19, and then that's going to take you,
So it's nothing fancy.
no,
All right, thank
it's
you.
nothing fancy. It doesn't need to be fancy or complicated. Okay, so moving on, speaking of complicated, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, we were able to finish up this afternoon the ESSER 2 application. We weren't sure we were going to be able to get that finished, this was where we had to spend almost $2.1 million, had to lay out the plans. So the initial plan that we brought to you, that was approved and then approved by the task force and the State Department, what we've done is we've pulled it on out. I didn't make copies. It's really little, and we've got to get the official document back from ESSER to make sure we're adding it to the correct spreadsheet before we do that. So we are making progress there. That should be finished. I think I'll feel comfortable by the end of this week that'll be done and we can send it up. Because remember, it has to be approved by December at the state level so that all that money can be pulled down or awarded so that we're able to use it. Anything that's not awarded prior to December, you just leave on the table. Doesn't mean that you can't go in and change things, or things may cost more, or you have to make alterations. That's okay too, but at least the money has been awarded so that we're able to use it. Okay? ESSER 3, we had a little survey today. That is, if you look back on that website, part of ESSER 3 was we had to have a plan for safe return to in-person instruction, continuity of services, and you can click right there on that, and that's going to take you to ours. Well, in theory. I know it's there. It was there earlier. I attached it to the KSDE website. Here we go. And this this is 7 pages long, if you'd like to read it, but it gives you some specific information about what we're going to do about masking, how we're going to take care of social distancing, how we're going to talk about hand washing and respiratory etiquette, how we're cleaning and maintaining our facilities and ventilation, who's doing contact tracing, and then diagnostic and screening testing, and then also students, our special ed students, vaccinations. It's all included in here, okay? And so that was one of the requirements today, one of the requirements for the ESSER 3 money, and that was something that they told us on Monday. Oh, by the way, this has to be done because they're learning as they're going to with the additional requirements. So that's where we are with that. We did have a webinar last week for ESSER 3 as well. So what else have we got on there? The next thing is the strategic plan update. Last Friday, we had a full day of professional development in the district. And what we did is, there are 5 goal areas for the strategic plan, and there are different committees in each of those groups. And some of those committees met to talk about things like what's happening, what needs to be happening, and how can we measure what's happening. And so those groups met. There was a technology group, recruitment of personnel, civic engagement, social emotional. Jeff, you're just sitting there. Help me here.
We had academic, we had community engagement,
Yeah.
we had civic engagement.
Health and wellness.
Yes, health and wellness.
Academic, right. So we met, those were preliminary meetings. We visited, talked about, brainstormed different ways that we could meet the goals and then how those things could be measured.
It was an opportunity for staff, we had
input.
staff from every building on every one of those committees, so everybody kind of had an opportunity to have input and say and suggestions on what action steps and implementation steps we need to get in that to make sure that we're meeting the goal and achieving what we need to achieve.
Right. So it was a very worthwhile, I felt, and productive day. So our next professional development day is October the 11th.
So do you have that information that you can share with the board?
Yes, it will be coming. So right now we have it in note form,
Right.
Lou. So what we'll do as a team is start aligning action steps and implementation steps and writing SMART goals and visions for each one of those goal areas, and that will be coming to you. And then hopefully as we report, each month, I think on the way Lori has it set up, you'll be able to see those plans, you'll be able to see those measurements. Each school will kind of report out how their progress on achieving those goals.
And so a blank one of those formats was included in a view that kind of gave you an idea of what it was going to look like. So yes, we've taken a lot of notes. Now we need to get it all put together. So that's what I've got for my board report. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to 7.0, reports by board members. We do have item A, which is the report on the September Tri-County Board meeting. Mr. Castle?
Yes, that was, this had to be a record meeting lengthwise. It was about 15 minutes from start to finish. We had one action item, that was to consider the annual fiscal policies, which includes who can pick up the mail and who receipts the monies and all those things. And say it was about a 15-minute meeting, in and out.
Thank you very much. Report on Levette Health Tour. Lou Martino and Roger Durrani took that tour, as I understand it. One of you would like to address?
Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, last week, Brian Williams had asked for any school board members in the area if they would like to visit with some of the nurses in the ER and the emergency room and the ICU room, intensive care unit room. And I said yes, and Roger said yes. So it was like a 45-minute walkthrough. And we stopped and talked to about maybe 20 different nurses at 3 or 4 different stations in the ICU and the ER. And just looking at their faces, you could tell that they were tired, that they were frustrated, that they were trying to figure out how can we get it across to the community that we need some more support. And the support that they want is to make sure that we talk about vaccinating as many people in our school district as possible, as well as keeping up with the masking. And then we also met with Dr. Goodlow, Dr. Bowman, and another doctor, and they explained why the masking was so important. One of the nurses, actually all the nurses, one of the things that they told us was a phrase that they hear from some of these patients that aren't vaccinated that may be dying or severely ill, is they use the term, I wish I would have been vaccinated. So then I texted another nurse that I know that I'm on a hospital committee with, and she said, Mr. Martino, I want to tell you, there's another phrase that we didn't tell you about, and that phrase is when you go into a patient's room and you already know what their chart is, and you have a pretty good idea what's going to happen, they look in the eye and they ask you, am I going to die? So when you start hearing those kind of things from these nurses and the doctors, it puts a little more information in your head about the severity of the issue when you're not vaccinated or you refuse to mask up to help protect our community. So my summation of the visit was almost 90, well, there's one nurse that wasn't for the vaccinations, but everyone's promoted the vaccinations as well as saying, please mask up because the flu season is starting and RSV is starting, so don't stop now.
Yeah, that's correct. And in their recruitment, they virtually cannot get new nurses. So if anybody does not vaccinate and this mandate goes through where they have to be vaccinated, then they'll have to lose that staff member if there is one. But it was a very emotional tour, very emotional.
And he also said that the oxygen for these patients, sometimes they run low and they have to be careful on how they dole out the oxygen to patients that are intubated. So I don't know how they resolve that issue. And trying to find rooms for patients that may need a heart issue addressed or some severe issues. Sometimes they can't get in and they have to call other hospitals. He told us about the case of the guy in Florida that had to call, or Alabama, that had to call 43 hospitals in order to get in to take care of a heart issue, or I don't know if it's a heart issue, but a severe issue, and that's a problem, a big problem.
Okay, thank you for that report. Are there other questions for the gentleman who did the tour? Did you have further comment, Lou? No?
He showed us the remodeling, and that's going to be a brand-new hospital. So this community in this area is blessed because that hospital, when they're finished with it, is going to be state-of-the-art. He showed us almost every single new room that they're building right there.
Good, good. All right, thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to do that and then reporting back to us. Item 8.0, the kindergarten readiness and early learning opportunities. I believe we have Ms. Gardner, Lincoln Principal, for that.
And I think she's handed out some things. So
Okay.
this is a part of, when we took the strategic plan and we broke it apart and did accountability reports each month. So we'll be touching on different ones, parts of that strategic plan. And this one was, Shelley was the first one to get to go.
So my partner, Whitney Spencer, was going to be here, but she was out today. So I have some of her notes. So she knew a lot more about some of this. But we'll start with the ASQ. I think I handed out some papers. So the ASQ is a state mandate for kindergarten. So this paper right here, the one that explains what is the ASQ2, which is the social emotional part, and the ASQ3 is more of the academic or the child's development. So these are filled out. We sent them out before school started to all of the kindergarten parents and all of our preschool parents to see where they think that their child is academically. So if you look, it's kind of a lengthy questionnaire. So the one up the top, this is the ASQ2. I think I left one on each table. And so these are some of the questions that they ask the parent to just check, and they can check always, or often or always, sometimes, rarely or never, or they can check if it's a concern. Now, this is all filled out by the parent. So when they come to school, if the teacher sees something different, this is what the parent sees. So these are all entered into a database, and then there are some reports that you can pull and share with parents about their development of their child's social, emotional development, and also their academics and what they think their child can do. So, and it disaggregates all the information on the reports. I didn't print off any reports because a lot of it has their names on them. But that is what we give, and we give it to the preschool too, to see where they think they're at. So they have 2 years of this to fill it out. And it is kind of interesting to see. We haven't done this, we've done this for maybe 3 years. So it'll be interesting to see how the growth is in each year between preschool and kindergarten. So does anyone have any questions about the ASQ2 or the ASQ3?
So, and those are requirements?
Yes.
From the state?
Yes, they are.
As a way to.
So, first of all, ASQ for the general public means?
Ages and stages questionnaire.
Okay. And the SE is?
Social emotional?
Okay, thank you. So,
48 months versus the 60 months.
Yeah, and they're all in months. So I think it starts at maybe 2 years. So like this particular one is a 60-month questionnaire. So it's 57 months through 66 months.
So that would be a 5-year-old kindergarten
Right.
student would get the 60-month, and then the 48-month
Yeah.
would be
And
about a 4-year-old.
I think I pulled on the ASQ2, I think I pulled the.
So our 4-year-old pre-K
Yeah,
students
the
would get that
4-year-old.
one.
so what happens if you see some red flags on this social and emotional? What happens next?
So then we'll look at the data and we'll see maybe where we need to go as far as like counseling lessons, or maybe just built in, and the teacher can maybe work on some lessons in there. So we can really look at the data and see where we need to, what direction we need to go.
I'm talking about individual students.
So it could be individual counseling, it could be maybe a center of getting along or something like that. So we would tailor it to the individual student.
So the elementary schools have mental health access?
Yes, yes.
So-
In the preschool level also, yes. And they do have counselors. The counselor goes in and does lessons also in the preschool and in kindergarten.
Right. And so it could be also a referral to our mental
Yes.
health
Yeah.
through our grant program. It could be a family referral there, or a referral to CHC.
Yeah, there's lots of
SEK
different directions we
as
can
well.
go.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for this report.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
oh, do you want the rest of it?
Oh, I thought you were.
Oh, I was like totally okay with it.
We will take
This
the rest of
was
it.
just a little bit more
We'll take
time.
everything you have. I saw a pause there and I thought
That's all
that
right. That was my wait time.
was. Okay, all right.
So the next thing that we have given we started last year with preschool is the PELI, which is the preschool early literacy indicator. It kind of goes along with DIBELS, so it tests for alphabet knowledge, phonological knowledge, vocabulary and oral language, and listening comprehension. So it's going to be really interesting because when we do the PELI in preschool, we can look at them in 5th grade if they're struggling. We can look back, because it's all on the website, we can look back and see, did they struggle in preschool? What were they missing in preschool? So when we do the PELI, then we take that and we have 4 preschool classes. And we have some interventionists that go in there and they're working with those individual students on what they need. So if they're missing some phonological awareness, those interventionists are going to go into the classroom or pull them out. We push in a lot because we like to keep the kids in the classroom. And, if they're working on vocabulary, if the interventionist stays in the classroom and they're in centers, that interventionist can talk with them, talk about what's in the center, so they can do it that way, or they might have to pull them out. Let's see. And she kind of made some data. So this page right here is kind of some data from last year, and it compares it to this year. So like last year, they came in at 38%. This year, they came in at 34% on alphabet knowledge. All right, and then we also, we have 2 preschools. We have a Bike Types preschool, which is, it's out in that annex. And it's kind of for 3-year-olds that are not quite ready for preschool, so it only goes 3 days a week. So they come in and they work on like social things. They work on just very basic things. So we have that preschool, and we also have the Kids First preschool, which is for students that have like IEPs that need some, structure with their goals. We also have model students in that preschool. So that is that.
And in addition to that, we've got the 2 regular 4-year-old
Yes.
programs. And so there's an AM and a PM 4-year-old program.
Yes, and we have a 3-year program.
And a 3-year-old program.
That's an AM and a PM.
An AM and a PM. So we've got an opportunity to have about 100 to 110 preschool students at
And
Lincoln.
we do have wait lists, so, yeah. All right, any questions?
So what's your goal?
What's our goal?
Yeah, if you start.
Well, if we start early and we get those interventions in place and we can see where they're lacking, our goal is to have everybody on target on grade level.
Okay, so I'm looking at vocabulary, oral language, total score.
Yep,
So you went from 45% at the beginning of the year, 41% at the middle of the year.
okay.
Looks like it.
And,
Is that-
so we
is
take that and we work with that. So like our interventionists get together with our reading coach and we see where we lack and see maybe what we're not getting in wonders or what we need to bring in.
And it could also be too that the cut score continues to get higher.
It does, it grows every.
So,
Cut scores to the general public.
okay, so what the expected level is. So let's say 45% of them in the beginning met the goal and it was 50. And then in the middle, the goal's not 50 anymore, the goal's 75.
Right.
Well, then only 41% of them made it to 75. And then the goal is 100 at the end. Well,
So this graph doesn't reflect what you just said.
Right. And sometimes, we have kids that come and go. So, we could be testing a kid that's maybe been there a week.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the
Yeah,
data.
no, yeah.
and it says down on the corner that that's the percentage of students that are at or above benchmark, but those benchmarks, they change depending upon the time of the
And
year.
the goal is kindergarten readiness. That's the big push. Kindergarten readiness is the big push. I think over time, we've learned that when kids come to kindergarten, that gap is so big with exposure to vocabulary, social emotional. So with the pre-K, with the ASQ, with this data is to close that gap so we can keep those kids, where the gap's not so large already at kindergarten. A lot of times that gap stays all the way through. So that's the big push from the state in this regard.
Close the gap from the beginning of the school year.
Before kindergarten even.
That's why we put those preschools in 12 years ago.
That's right.
Because we knew it
Catch them
was.
early, yeah.
So 12 years ago is when we implemented the preschool.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. That was here.
And these are just, the measurements and tools that the state's putting in so we can see and track
All right,
growth.
so do you have enough data to say what has happened?
No, because we just started the Pele last year. So we can compare last year's beginnings to this year's, but yeah.
Why do we think, the blue box is telling me this year,
Well, I'm sorry.
the blue box,
Yes.
the blue graph.
That it was down a little bit.
Everybody's coming down, yeah. You have any idea why?
I mean, in my opinion, I think that COVID had a lot to do with it. I mean, we're seeing kids that come in that really haven't even been socialized. If you think about it, a 3-year-old, we've been in this about a year and a half. So a year and a half of their life, that's over half their life. That, they haven't socialized. They maybe didn't get the opportunities to go to the grocery store and talk about the fruits and for vocabulary and stuff. So hopefully, people are getting kids in school and hopefully we'll get that up.
But I do think you're right. I think that's a direct reflection of the impact
I do.
COVID has had on our littles.
Yep.
I got a question, Shelley.
Yes.
On that same page that Lou was talking about, on the end of the year last year,
Yes.
why did only 15 of 59 take that? Is that correct?
On,
No, that's that met the benchmark, Roger.
Oh, 15
Yeah.
of 59 met the bench. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
sorry.
So all the students took it then, correct?
Right.
Yeah. And I will mention on the ASQ 2 and 3, they do recommend that we don't give it to kids that have AEPs, because then the parent would just be saying no, 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 no. And on the things that they can do. So we did not give it to them.
Say that again, please.
On the ASQ 2 and 3, they recommended that we don't give it to kids that have severe academic needs and stuff like that with the IEP. Just because whenever they go to answer those questions, can your child do this? Can your child do this? It's no, 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 no. So the state did recommend that we didn't give them to the ones that had the severe.
Right, because as a parent, that would be incredibly discouraging.
Yeah, and-
to have paperwork focused on all the things your child couldn't do, when there are numerous things your child can do.
Just maybe not
That
on-
may be not assessed on an
And if
ages
they
and
have an
stages.
IEP, we probably have enough information.
Right.
already.
Yeah.
Well, if we have an IEP, we know the things we need to work on and the things that
It's
they
an
can do,
individualized
can't do.
plan,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep,
I know
absolutely.
Exactly what it is, yeah.
That's exactly right, Olivia.
Exactly.
And to the end of the year test a little bit, because I had this as an administrator too. Sometimes May is just not a great time to test
It is
little
hard.
kids too. And you sometimes, especially that age group, that's awful tough.
Okay, but this questionnaire this lengthy questionnaire
Yes.
is to be filled out by parents?
By parents.
And out of 59 families, how many actually turn something like this in?
Well, we encourage them to turn it in. We send out messages and we encourage them to turn it in. I would say that probably we might have gotten back about 60 this year,
How many?
60, and that's both kindergarten and preschool. So, we can encourage them to fill it out. We gave it to them at enrollment, when we had enrollment in the buildings, but when we went to virtual, we sent it out. So,
Not a
think-
bad response rate, probably 40 or 50%.
yeah,
And considering the length of it,
it's pretty,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty
That's my
lengthy.
point.
right.
The other point is, there's a lot of information here. Does your child walk on his tiptoes for 15 feet?
Right, and that's why the parent is filling it
So-
out, because the parent is supposed to do that.
So
to
what
see.
happens with that kind of information?
So if they did, then we could turn it into OT and see if OT wanted to screen them to see if they could help.
Like occupational therapy.
Occupational therapy, sorry.
Occupational therapy or physical therapy.
Mhm.
When you look through there, you realize, oh, there's a lot of physical things that are showing up. Maybe this is a student that our occupational therapist or our physical therapist just needs to screen, not test necessarily, but just screen. Watch the student walk down
Okay,
the
so
hallway.
when this form is filled out by the parent, then where does it go next?
So it comes back to the school.
Well, who's the next person that reads this?
The next person that reads the data is the person who puts it into the computer, which is CHC.
Which is what?
CHC,
So as part of our agreement with Community Health, because this is a Kansas requirement, and so they're used to the database and filling it out. So as part of that requirement, they input that data for us.
Okay.
And then when we get the reports.
And I went to
Then-
Greenbush or I didn't go to Greenbush. I did some virtual classes at Greenbush that explained some of the reports and some of the information that you can pull from it that are like some of the important information and different ways to do reports so the teachers can share it with the parent.
So the classroom teachers analyzing it,
Yes, they will analyze
they
it.
would make those referrals to OT?
To like, yeah, OT or
PT
PT or,
whatever.
yeah, or, yeah. It's a lot.
It is a lot, but it takes a lot to get kids ready for kindergarten.
It does, it
And
does.
so-
And, you know, we take them as they are. I mean, it doesn't matter. We don't screen them to say, oh, no, you're not ready for kindergarten. No, we take them as they are and get them as far as we can.
Close that gap.
Yep. All right, any other questions?
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we're moving on to old business, 9.0, action on the 21-22 technology budget. I believe Mr. McGuire is here to educate us on that.
Yes, page one and pass it down, please. Good evening.
Hello.
If you turn to page 45 in your packet, this is my expected technology budget as submitted. I do apologize, last month I was ill for the board meeting, but I'm here now. So a couple things to note is that in the renewal licenses and maintenance, section A, there are two amounts that are from the kid sheet, wireless hotspots that are actually covered with grant money. So to the tune of about, 18 or 19 thousand dollars. So they are in my purview, but you can basically remove that amount from our responsibility for this budget. I'm willing to take any questions. I was gonna maybe field any questions on this in general and then move on to the intercom system. So if there are any questions about sections A through D, or really, I guess A through C, not including the intercom system, any expenditures, anything like that. And I mean, we could always go back to it if someone thinks of something, but, so intercoms, this is, I believe, year 3. I put the intercoms forward to the board. The changes that have happened between this year and last year and a couple of years ago is that there's a lot more vendors in the game now, especially with ESSER 2, ESSER 3, ESSER 1, and all the grant money. There is a company that kind of stood out to me. I did get multiple bids again this year. I know I presented some bids, I believe it was 2 years ago, very preliminary bids, non-actionable bids. This is the same thing that I passed out. And this is for purchasing equipment that not only would it get us the intercom and the bells all sorted out and on the same system to where it's a lot easier to support and manage. It gives us the extra security features of being able to, play an alert from a cell phone or from any device. Not a lot of places offer some kind of like console that you put in the office, and that's the master console for your building. And so if something happens with that, all of a sudden you can't do announcements, you can't do anything. And we wanted something that you could do from any device anywhere. So this is a web-based feature, which is also why it has like a yearly term associated with it. We pay for that functionality. So from a safety standpoint, that's really what we were looking for. And since we are in the COVID times, we also have a need since teachers have to wear masks all day, we've played around with multiple different solutions. Some buildings have bought their own equipment, and we've toyed around with how do you project your voice to children in the classroom. And so what they're now offering with these intercom systems is sound reinforcement. So you do have an input that when the intercom is when announcements aren't playing, when the bells aren't ringing, you can use those speakers for, let's say, like the wireless headsets that we bought. Or if you're playing a video through your computer, we can hook that up to it as well. So, and that's really what gets it into the ESSER funding game, is that that functionality qualifies it for ESSER funding. I know Lori stated that ESSER 2, I think, was pretty much taken care of. I believe once we get ESSER 2 approved, we will then immediately move on to ESSER 3, because I think that bidding is open now.
It is. And I'll tell you, when Ben called last week and said, they've put out some new research and things, and so intercom systems might be able to be purchased with ESSER 3 money. I said, okay, well, get some information. I do know, when I started at the beginning of this year and I was at Lincoln, because Mrs. Gardner was out, there was no way that I could pick up the phone and call every classroom, or like make an announcement, or say the pledge, or say, hey, you need to come in. We have no functionality whatsoever with the system we have in regard to intercoms.
And it's mainly the phone speakers are just not loud enough to go over classroom volume.
Right.
So.
And so it's imperative, I feel like, that we have an intercom system installed. And we're fortunate because the majority of the items that are in technology and that Ben has had before and brought before the board have been paid for with ESSER money. And so there hasn't been a large expense out of the general fund or the at-risk fund for technology dollars.
Correct. Like on my previous years that I've shown in my budget, that did not include the $500,000 worth of equipment that was paid with grant money. It just, again, I don't believe I presented my budget last year. I did the year before that, but I did not last year.
So this intercom system, are you saying that for a student to hear me better as a teacher, you have to have the headphones on to work? Is that what you say?
No, this would be speakers on the wall that would amplify the teacher's voice that would be wearing a microphone.
So it's a wireless system?
Correct. And if it's not wireless, we can get it there without much effort.
Like kind of a microphone?
Yes, we already have those. We bought those all for Zoom, and there's been, everyone's still figuring stuff out. And I know some people said that it didn't work the best with a mask, and, we can look at that, but then anything that we would buy for that would also qualify for this ESSER, because that's what the goal is for that purchase, would be sound reinforcement, so kids can hear teachers while they wear a mask. So that's what we're shooting for, but and that's why I was really, this WAH SEGA WASEGA, this is why I was drawn to their company and specifically because A, they piece out the equipment, so you buy what you need, and B, they did have a large portion. I actually talked to a specialist that talked about how do you make the purchases that qualify for ESSER funding, and they actually have schools that have already gone through this with their ESSER 2 money and have been approved.
Does this have district-wide capabilities?
In terms of
if this was also in a district office and we had something come up, could Lori punch one button and communicate through the whole, every building?
I would have to check into that because I know there's a controller for every building, but I'd have to look deeper into the system to see if those controllers could then all be sent the same signal at the same time. I would pretty much bet so, but I can't guarantee it just with this initial outing. But this would get us, since it is an online system, we could give like the secretaries limited access. And the principals, they could go in and change the bells at any time to whatever schedules they want. We actually, even with the bells we have one schedule. You can't if you wanted to change the schedule every day, you'd have to go in and you get 4 buttons to program your schedule in. So, and actually right now we do have Garfield School that's down. I have some equipment that's being ordered to try to get it back up. Every time I do that, it takes longer and longer to get the equipment, and sometime, one of these days, they're just going to say it's no longer available.
It's too old.
I know I did look, because if our main controller goes down, the only place to get one is eBay, and they go for about 8.5 or 9 grand. And they are not worth that, but they know it's worth it to somebody. So that's kind of what we're running into. I mean, we got 30 plus years out of the system. I mean, you can't argue against that, but it's from a support standpoint, I'm seeing we need a complete overhaul. And that gets, there's no question on existing speakers, because a lot of places nickel and dime you, and they say, hey, you can buy this one controller and hook up your existing speakers. I have no trust in any of our existing speakers. So, and I know that the last time we had one speaker go out in one of the outbiddings at the high school, it took a guy in a truck to come, and it took him about 6 hours to trace it down, and it cost the district about $700 to repair one speaker. And that's not sustainable, because we have many speakers. We kind of did a walkthrough through all the schools, and yeah, there's a lot going on. So the scope of this project is pretty large. We would be looking at getting installation as part of this, because if the tech department with our current load, it would take us 3 to 4 years to cable all this, which I don't think is, and in terms of installation, we would probably have to bid it out. I know this and some other systems all have state pricing through either NASPO or, and I do not know what that stands for, and like NASC, things like that, just, you know, different state pricing.
So are we able to take action then on the operating expense aspect, and then maybe not on the technology upgrade, which is the intercom system, because maybe we might want to understand what the installation cost is before we, I mean, that's just my initial thought. I'd like to know what installation costs.
I did get a preliminary off-the-cuff quote,
Okay.
and it was to the tune of $90,000 to $115,000,
Okay,
because it's
so-
a lot of cable.
So another 100,000 on this then,
Like probably.
most likely. Okay.
How confident are you that this would be ESSER?
How confident am I?
Yes.
Depends on which video.
As confident as we can be with the way ESSER funding goes.
Well, what I have read, I do believe it will work. Now, sometimes they change the rules and it may not. The reality is, I feel like we need it, whether we use ESSER money to pay for it or whether we use capital outlay. It would be my recommendation, simply because from a safety perspective,
Well,
but the goal would be to use ESSER money.
the one thing that I want to consider though is if you've got someone to install it, a lot of times don't, the people that install it sell you the equipment, and then so that you don't have the equipment people blaming the installer and the installer blaming the equipment people, you've got the same group you're dealing with. I mean, is that a possibility here?
I know in terms of, sometimes they have like qualified vendors that
Okay.
they go through that, or, you know, things like that. But the beauty of this system is that it's all Ethernet cable.
Okay.
It's something we could do, we just do not have the manpower and time to do it, because
Okay.
it's miles upon miles of cable.
Well, sure it is.
But that's also what's nice about this is they run it to our server room to switches we manage, and if it tests fine at both ends, that's what we're looking for.
Okay. So what's the board's thought on this? I mean,
Okay, I agree with you, Jeff. First of all, the last time we had a facilities meeting, we weren't talking, we were gonna ask, and James was gonna ask other people, we were gonna look at other types of intercoms ourselves and hear a report from them. And now all of a sudden, we've got
No, well-
one company.
And I think James was looking, but James has talked to Ben about it, because it's, the intercom systems now are more on the technology end than on just the speaker on the wall.
Well, I
type of
agree,
thing.
but I thought it was gonna come back to our committee. That's what I understood, and it's facilities.
Which is fine. Again, I'm not, this is my front runner right now, but this is not, this is not actionable. I would not take action on this today.
Okay.
Because the numbers could be,
I agree with Jeff. I would rather have one company put it in.
well,
total.
we need to entertain it because
Yeah.
we've had that problem in this district before.
Yeah.
So, all right, so I think what I'm hearing then is maybe we delay the section D until we can discuss it a little more, maybe talk about one vendor for install and equipment.
And then he and James can get together.
And they can get together
Get some more information and.
share with
we can-
facilities.
Sure.
The only other thing I have is in section C, on your cover page, you've got 147,000. On your detailed page, you've got 137,000, but when you add those items up, it's actually 152,000.
So
So,
that's bad math on my part then.
okay, so am I operating under the assumption that your details in your category that total 152,000 are what you're looking for, not 147 or 137?
That would be correct. So
Okay.
what I did is I changed those totals to reflect what, and I did not change the totals on the overview
I got
page. So
you.
that is a mistake.
So what we're doing is we take action on A at 118,014, B at 52,304, and C, which would be 152,000.
Again, I
And then we would
apologize
delay
for
D.
that.
We would delay D.
Right, so we got information
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
facilities team.
That's what I would propose we do.
It looks like most of the things that you have in here are things you have to have for
Yeah,
filtering and.
Yeah, these are operating expenses. that-
Anti-spyware,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you can't operate without that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Correct.
correct.
All right. But I'm with you on that.
Okay.
And again, with the Khajiit wireless, that is
Yeah, I
a
got
cost
you.
that isn't my purview, we are reducing those numbers because we are not in a remote anymore, so we don't need 150 of them, we're gonna go down to 55. And then we can always reevaluate if we do need more. We send them a check and they turn back on the 100 because we don't send anything back. So we can always go up,
So,
just in case that becomes a problem.
so the motion is then going to be for the operating expenses listed under section A, B, and C for a total cost of 322,318. Okay. So if someone wants to make that motion. Mr. Castle makes that motion, all right? Is there a second to that?
I didn't, what was the first motion? I missed that.
The motion is to approve sections A, B, and C, and the total cost of that revised is 322,318. And we will talk about section D later, which is the intercom system.
There's a motion on the floor?
There is a
There's a
motion on the
motion.
floor,
Who made
yes.
the
Waiting.
motion?
Mike made the motion. Anybody want to second the motion?
Well, it's a lot of money. So you can't really operate if you don't have this, is that
They
correct?
can-
Correct.
And some of this is ESSER money?
The Wi-Fi on the buses would
Just the
be,
14,000.
would be semester money.
We're talking about ESSER money for the intercoms.
Right, and so
Oh, okay.
that's totally off the.
Correct, and a lot of it was gauging interest in the board and just reiterating that, I mean, it sounds like we're at least making progress on that, which is what my goal was tonight, not to get something approved and go.
Sure, we'll talk about that later.
Yep.
So let me ask you this before we get a second, if there is a second.
Sure.
So is there anything from this that you would be able to cut without losing functionality?
Again, A is the operating expenses. So, and there is a lot of curriculum software on there that just, for some, some of it I renew, some of it I don't. It's just kind of
Infinite
what happens,
Campus.
what's been grandfathered in. I know, like, we added another school to reading counts again. That's another $3,000.
Our student management system is all a part of that renewal of the license. Our food service software, all of that is
I
renewal
mean,
of
Infinite Campus
licenses.
is on here, our student information system.
Our library checkout system.
And then section B was the purchasing of the new switches and the internet and the wide area network to connect all the schools together.
And vended E-rate, which means out of the 100% of that cost, 80% of it was covered by E-rate. So that percentage that you see is only 20%
Yeah,
of what
so we
we're,
paid 52,303.80 and they paid 209,215.20.
And then you've got printers and printer repairs, copies and stuff like that.
Correct, and and again, I updated those numbers based on last year's numbers and projected, and I do apologize for not getting the totals correct.
We figured it out.
Okay, with the caveat that Roger said that this information on the intercom probably should go through the,
That's not in the motion.
We're
No,
tabling
he's just
that.
saying
That
that.
is not in the motion.
Yeah, we're tabling D.
I'm making a
Yeah.
caveat. I understand, I'm just making, I just want to make sure that, I think the suggestion was, before we tabled it, that we need to try to get a vendor that takes care of the labor portion as well as the physical portion. Is that what you said?
So, yes.
Okay.
So we decided that we were going to defer Section D of this budget till a later point in time so that we could discuss it further,
I just get that
coordinate
clarified.
efforts further with the facilities committee and see and investigate one vendor for install and equipment so we don't have a blame game if we have a problem.
All right, seeing that we already voted on one, and I was against that, but I will vote, I will second that motion.
Okay, so we got a motion on the floor and a second for sections A, B, and C of the technology budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Yep. Moving on. Item 9.1, discussion on the eastern boundary of the bus stops.
Okay, so the eastern boundary of the bus stop, so Rick and Jeff and I drove the eastern boundary of our district again this morning to look to see if there was someplace within our district boundary lines where it was safe and there was adequate space and people, for people to pick up and drop off kids. Roger had mentioned a computer store that was along there. We hadn't seen that. So when we drove by today, we saw it and turned around and got the phone number and called that gentleman as well. And the owner, he didn't feel like that there was adequate space for the bus and the parking, and he wasn't interested in using that space. So that would leave within our district boundaries. There was that small gravelled area on Strauss at that corner. However, that would require considerable gravel, some other work, and the owner of that was not interested in the liability that might cause for them. So within our district boundaries, right there at that line, the safest and closest spot would be the fire station, since the pecan shop is no longer an option. That is on public property. Currently, there are 2 students that are picked up there, sometimes 3. And it is working. Pickup's been on time, drop-off, it's been adequate is my understanding. So anytime we drive into the boundaries of another school district, that requires that we get permission from that school district. And I know there's another district that picks up in McCune, and it's my understanding that driver lives in McCune and takes the bus home and then picks students up from there.
That's not accurate, ma'am.
That was what the superintendent told me, so that, I don't know. That was the information he shared with me, so.
Okay, but if we have a chance to get extra students, and maybe as many as at least 7 what was here tonight, there's 3 most of the time, and then the ladies extra 4, there's 7. I mean, I would think we would want to make the effort, at least try to see if we can get permission. I mean, and who knows, I know there's another lady that has 4 kids that live just north. Now, she brings her kids to town, but they may want to ride home. I mean, I know of a neighboring district who would love, they would road trip on us anyway.
Right, and so would we give them permission to come in? No.
Well, but last year, I turned in about 247, picking up there at Strauss. They did it. They picked up kids right there, and I've seen Oswego drop off at the Circle Pecan store. Not all the time, but I've seen their truck there because that's the way I go to the farm. So I see those vehicles.
Anytime we drive within another district's boundaries, we're supposed to notify them that we're doing that. And if we're picking up or dropping off, getting permission. I think that's important that we're good neighbors and responsible.
Oh, I agree.
Driving outside of the county and outside of the district, I mean, it's an additional 10, 15 minutes one way. And then, so there would be an additional expense for our drivers and those kinds of things.
Well, but now, wait a minute. It can't be additional expense if we're picking up more kids. If we gain the 4 who want to come here,
Well, it's an additional expense, it's just an additional revenue as well in
Yes.
that scenario.
Then we do
Yes.
not,
It would
we
be-
do not get reimbursed for transportation of those students.
No, we
Yeah.
would not.
but
So- and today-
what's more, we're about education of students. If students are happy with our district, I've known money we've spent that doesn't base, I mean, I wouldn't even bring that into it just because you get reimbursement. I know right now, I drove it today too, and from our boundary to the school, from our closest school boundary, it's 3.2 miles.
From the pecan shop, because that's the
No,
boundary.
from the bus stop, no, no. That's not our boundary. Because I farm, I know where that boundary is. The boundary is the county line. The county line is to the
It's 2
east
more
somewhat,
miles.
to the east somewhat.
Whose
And
district is the bus stop she's talking about?
It's
247,
247
Which
McEwen.
is,
in McCune. It's Cherokee,
southeast.
and
southeast.
so we have a problem talking to them about that? Is that what you're saying?
No, we do not have a problem. What I'm saying is, I feel like if we have others that ask us, can we come in your district and pick up kids? The answer is going to be no.
And we don't
That
poach,
isn't-
we've never poached students in this
Right.
district.
That's not
And
neighborly.
we've stuck to that. To my knowledge, we've never poached students by going in other district boundaries. Now, we've had people that have illegally poached us.
Well, isn't that what you were saying?
Well, right
But-
now, we have 3 students anyway who are coming to Parsons.
Right, and they're on the out-of-district forms that we've turned in. We do provide their transportation, and it's within our attendance boundaries. I think when we cross outside of our attendance boundaries, outside of our district lines to go picking up, then what if we have a family in Girard that wants to come, or a family in Weir? And then we've got to be really careful about, I feel like, setting a precedent that we're able to afford to everyone.
Well, if we're only 3.2 miles and we can gain some students, I don't see
And,
what the
you know,
problem is.
and today is September the 20th, and so as students are enrolled, the districts that they're enrolled in, they're expecting to continue to educate them for the remainder of this school year, as they would have received the funding for
We're
that.
about students. If we can get students, I mean, I've
just
talked
wanted-
about this for a long time.
Right, we want to do it in a way, I feel like that's fair, and
Well, it's really simple to me. This is a real simple situation. We don't have action on our agenda tonight, but we're going to have action on it next month. We'll have a full board and we'll just vote on it. And we'll let the votes, where the votes lie, they lie. And the motion will either be leave it where it's at or move it to somewhere if we get approval to go in 247. And we'll vote on it as a board. It'll take 4 votes to do whatever.
and I can,
And we'll just get on the agenda.
How
contact the
many
superintendent.
families asked to pick up kids in our district?
Right now, 2.
Only 2?
Yeah, I've been contacted by Mrs. Schenker, and there was one other person who brings their child there and drops them in the morning. Not every morning, but some mornings.
No. I think Jeff said there are other districts poaching into the Parsons School District.
Illegally.
That's his point.
They've illegally done that.
Illegally.
Yeah, because we've witnessed them stopping in our boundaries and we didn't approve it and so on and so forth.
And we've called, and,
Yes,
yes.
through the years.
So, okay, well, I'm talking about this year.
So how many this year have I said?
Are poaching illegally or asking to pick up kids in our district?
Asking to pick up within our district boundaries? There aren't any within our district boundaries,
Because we don't approve it.
because we don't approve it.
If
Because
they were to ask, how many did ask, even though he would say no?
we didn't have anybody ask this year. Last year, we had one special education preschool person that had asked based on, where the child attended, but otherwise, they don't ask, because we aren't going to say yes.
So the other option that would have worked would be at Circle Pecans, that would have been legal?
Yes, it's within our school district boundaries. He did not wish for us to continue to pick up there, and it's a privately owned business. So that happened last year, the end of first semester.
But other buses stopped there, is that what I heard?
I
you
do
say?
not know.
I've heard them,
I
I've
do
seen
not
them
know.
drop off kids there.
Oh, okay.
But we'll just have it on the agenda for next month. It'll be action. Investigate the approval of 247 and then we'll take action.
Okay.
Would it be helpful if, as parents, we requested a letter from USD 247 giving you approval to come into their district?
We
I'll
have to,
contact the
yeah, she has to do it
superintendent and get
directly.
something in writing, but thank you, though.
Yeah, she has to do it directly.
Because right now, they're picking up 3 children at Strauss that are in your district every
Sure.
morning at 6:50.
247 is?
Yeah. I
On
drive
that
by every
corner?
morning.
On that corner?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Okay.
So that's partial answer to your question, Lou.
And the thing is,
At least we know those.
what they're supposed to do is turn in a letter that has those names listed. Doesn't mean that that's what others are doing, but if we're going to do it, we're going to do it the right way.
We're going to violate
Which
law.
We're not.
We're not.
We're not going to violate and sneak in and pick up people where others don't have permission. I don't know what others are doing or not doing.
I was getting to that.
Right.
So
But my
if
point
we're
is
gonna
now-
do it, let's do it the right way.
We're absolutely,
And
right
it's a
now.
law, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a law. You can't go into somebody else's district
Right.
Okay, I just-
without their permission.
I did
You
not
bet.
know that.
It's got to be written. You bet.
So, and I don't have written permission. I didn't
May
give written
point
permission.
one more thing out, please? We are actually closer to our school in Parsons than we are to our elementary school in 247. In addition to the good education that we get here, that's one of the reasons we want our children to go to school here. It's closer for me to come here if my child needs something at Guthridge or at the middle school than it is for me to drive to Weir, which is at the complete opposite end of our district. The majority of McCune children do not go to school in the district they're assigned to. They go to Parsons, they go to Oswego, they go to Girard, or they go to St. Paul, depending on where they live in the old McCune district.
And if they fill out an out-of-district request to attend, then that, you're right, that's how they would do that. They'd fill out that out-of-district request, but I don't know about busing or, transportation. And I didn't even recognize you. You've grown. Your son, I hadn't seen him in a long time. He's grown.
What time does that
Getting
bus,
tall.
is that bus? I'll take a picture of it. Maybe if I
6:50 unless it'll deviate,
can. Okay,
it'll deviate by about 7 minutes, so I will be there about 6:35.
okay.
Okay, we're moving on. 10.0, action to accept donations to schools.
All right, that's on page 48 of your packet. So if we go back and look, Lincoln had the following donations this month, the month of August. Westside Christian Church made a donation for school supplies for pre-K students for $500. Nazarene Church, school supplies packages for students in need for $150. Julie Legler made a $30 donation for children's books for the vending machine. And the Nazarene Church made an additional donation for $75 for extra school supplies for a total of $755. At Garfield Elementary this month, or in August, Parsons, the PTO made donations for teacher mini grants, restricted funds, $2,200. So that was the total there for August. At Guthridge in August, PTO again made those teacher mini grant donations for a total of $2,600 for the month. At the middle school, Jed and Andrea Hetlinger made a donation to the Viking store for $100, and Tank Connections made a donation to the Viking store for $1,000, totaling $1,100 for the month of August. At the high school, Ohio Pile Prints made a donation of $4.87 for the Positive Reinforcement Program. The Building Trades Program received a donation from Linda Williams for $50. The football program had a lift-a-thon, and the anonymous donors, the donations totaled $2,815. PHS Honor Flight had $142 from anonymous donations. PHS Honor Flight had a $50 donation from Ian Almond. And the volleyball program had a lift-a-thon, which included anonymous donations totaling $732. So total of $3,793.87 at the high school for the month of August, making the total school district donations for the month of August $10,448.87. So I move that you accept those donations.
Okay, all right. Olivia moved to accept those donations. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 10.1, action to appoint representative to the Delegate Assembly for the CASB Convention.
Okay, so this year there are going to be 2 delegate assemblies. The first one is going to be in person and virtual on November the 6th, and as a part of that annual convention held in Overland Park. So during Assembly 1, delegates are going to choose the KASB President-elect designee, and during Delegate Assembly 2, which is going to be held virtually on December the 16th, that's when they're going to vote on legislative positions and priorities. So there's one time where you would go in person, November the 6th, and vote for whoever you want to be the president. The next time would be virtual, December the 16th, to vote for legislative positions and priorities. So we just need someone who'd like to participate.
Anybody like to participate in that process?
Nobody else wants to, I'll do it.
Okay, thank you for volunteering. Does anybody have a problem with Mr. Castle being the delegate?
I'll nominate Mike.
All right, thank you. Okay, and he apparently accepts the nomination. Okay, all right, so we've got a motion to nominate Mike as the representative of the delegate assembly. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 10.2, action on the district mask policy.
All right, so the board elected in August when they determined that special meeting that we were going to wear masks indoors. We were going to then revisit that policy every month. So it is the next monthly scheduled board meeting, and here we are. So in speaking with local health professionals, they encourage us, just like Mr. Martino had said when he visited the hospital, they encourage us to continue the mask mandate for another month and then to reevaluate in October. We'll tell you, with our mask mandate, we have not had to quarantine students for school exposure very much. And so we've only had 12 different in-school exposures since school started.
Does anybody see a reason to change what we're doing right now?
Not at all.
No, but I have a comment to make.
Okay,
before we-
go ahead.
A week and a half ago, I went by the middle school just to say hello to Mr. Gordon, and it was a Friday afternoon, and he asked me if I would want to look around at some of the classrooms. So I said, sure, why not? So it was Friday afternoon, and we went to like almost 20 different classrooms, poked our heads in. Of course, I saw some of my former students that were teaching, and I saw some of the kids from the Youth Crisis Center wave to me because they know who I am for visiting the Youth Crisis Center. But every single classroom, every single student was wearing a mask. Every single teacher was wearing a mask. Every single student did not have a cell phone. Every single teacher did not have a cell phone. Every single student that I saw in my 40-some years of teaching in a classroom, I have never seen anything as amazing as I saw two Fridays ago. Every single student was engaged. Now that's hard to believe, but Tyler was there with me. Every single student was involved doing some kind of educational activity. Every classroom was decorated like it was just a fun place and a homey place to be. And as I talked to Tyler, I said, you know something? This mask thing has me, I'm starting to think about what this mask thing is doing, something that I wasn't really aware of. What, for me, what it does, and this is anecdotal, I don't have any research that says this. What it says is every single student is part of a unit that the playing field is equal. We don't have some kids that are masked and some kids that are unmasked. No one's wearing a golden studded, diamond studded mask. They're all wearing regular cloth masks or paper masks. They have a esprit de corps that I've never seen in my 30 years of teaching, especially on a Friday afternoon during a pandemic. I mean, this startled me. Another thing is, the masks cover the mouth, so most kids, you can't really talk to each other without making, like I'm doing, a muffled, loud sound. So they have to communicate with their eyes or with their body language. And I watched that, even with the teachers. They're doing a fantastic job. And then I asked Lori, so I've heard from some districts that these masks stifle learning. So I asked, do you have any data that shows that? And you could verify this. She said, no, but I do have data that said these kids are learning. And I talked to some retired teachers who told me this, well, in fact, I had breakfast with one the other day, said these kids don't mind these masks. And as far as I know, I've never seen any in our hospital hospitalized for acne or skin problems that some parents have complained about in other districts. So, that being said, I will, well, after the discussion, I will continue to promote masks until we have this thing down to a level where we feel that it's safe. I just don't think it's safe enough yet. That's just my personal opinion. And I don't see any problems with these kids moaning and groaning. And I haven't had one parent call me, maybe I'll get some phone calls tonight, about how badly these masks are. I have nothing but positive results.
And I do think we're fortunate because the numbers are beginning to go down in Lebec County, but they're not down yet. Right now, there are 46 adults that were currently active on Friday, and there were 9 children from age 0 to 10, there were 3, and ages 11 to 18, there were 6 students, or 6 children that had active COVID, and that was last Friday from the health department, so.
And that's countywide.
And that's countywide. That's countywide. And so right now, we have 1 active staff member and 1 active student as of today, so.
So I'm not hearing any motion to change things up then? Okay, we're going to move on then.
Do we need a motion to continue this and look at it again in October?
I mean, I can't remember what the original motion was. I mean,
It
if
just
we
said-
want.
We voted to look at it monthly.
Okay, so we can have
that's
a
all.
motion to continue the status quo. That's fine.
Okay,
Take that
I'll
motion.
move to continue this as is.
Okay, all right.
I'll
Second.
it.
All right, moved and seconded to continue the district mask policy as is. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. 10.3, discussion and action on COVID testing, test to stay
So
policy.
the test to stay policy, so you should have gotten a little bit of information. It's labeled test to stay and learn. So we're already currently doing test to know. That was approved by KDHE, which means if someone's symptomatic during the day, they can go to their health office and they receive a screening. It's a COVID screening that they do. And then if it's positive, they're sent home and they're sent to their local provider for a PCR test. All right, so this test to stay and learn would be for students that are quarantined. They would test every day during their quarantine and be allowed to participate in school as long as the test was negative. So the couple caveats to that. In order to be eligible to participate, the recommendation would be that these would be students if they were exposed at school. If there's a school exposure, then they're able to test to stay and learn. For those household and community exposures, there's a much greater risk of transmitting the virus if I live with the person and have that day in and day out contact with them. So they would not be eligible to participate in this test to stay and learn. So with extracurricular options, there's 3 different ways that the board could do it. You could say these students could participate in extracurricular activities, but must be fully masked while they're inside. They could participate, but they have to be masked inside or outside. Or you could say they're ineligible to participate during the 10-day quarantine period, but could attend games and practices if they were fully masked. In our area, I did hear, after I typed this up just a little bit before I came, another area school that does test to stay and learn, their policy for extracurriculars is no different. If they test negative in the morning, they're allowed to stay and they would participate just like their peers would in the afternoon, extracurricular activities, which means they would only mask when the whole group masked, and if they were outside, they wouldn't. So that would.
We were just talking about, we'd like them to be masked to prevent the spread if they were, but wearing a mask during a football game or wearing a mask
It's
while
not a
participating in
reasonable-
basketball is not real ideal.
It's not really a
in some of
reasonable
those.
request. Probably.
So in any outside sport, you're saying,
That's where we want some direction from the board, is we talked about test to stay, but participation in activities would be very difficult. And that's where most of our spreads, I think, happened last year. You know, we didn't have any school spread, but some through activities were a little more vulnerable.
And so, and up to this point, that will have only there would have been 12 students that would have been able to participate in this. And it's just important to remember that if our students are vaccinated, if they're eligible to be vaccinated, and they are vaccinated, then they're not required to quarantine. So this would not apply to them.
Okay.
They would just have to monitor for symptoms. So we're really encouraging folks to continue to get vaccinated, and we do offer those vaccines every Friday. They're at the school. Something also I wanted to note, we are currently 84% of our staff are vaccinated. So when we went back and looked, that was 276.
Both shots?
Both shots,
Yes.
fully vaccinated, yes.
vaccinated.
Which means 84, it was 83.49%, but yes. So 84% of them are fully vaccinated, which means they've received both shots and are 2 weeks out. That's,
Now, I was on a Zoom meeting Friday with the Kansas Associated School Boards, and the superintendent at Cherryville said they use these, is this the rapid test you're talking about?
It is.
And it's a nasal test, and it's pretty non-invasive.
that is
And he
correct.
said they're much, I don't know how much more accurate they are than the other swabs, but he said it's pretty accurate.
It was in the
whatever
high
pretty accurate
90s.
means.
Yeah, it was in the high 90s. that
Yeah,
these- that these would-
I think he said that. And it works well for them, so.
So
Right.
in terms of the motion for this, then, what are you needing in terms of the extracurricular aspect? Are you needing some verification or some identification of what we expect on extracurricular?
Yes.
Okay.
So then I've listed the 3 different options there. I mean, there could be more options.
So-
You could make up as many as you
So
like.
it seems, I mean, is option 1 the one you're leaning towards, or is that not what you're leaning towards? I mean, you tell us, I mean, what?
Okay, well, I would like for them to be able to participate in the extracurricular activities and mask whenever possible. And so that
So it would be masked if they're sitting on the bench like everybody else, but not masked when they're playing? Is that what you're
correct.
suggesting?
And it would be outside, they would be masked unless they were playing as well.
Okay.
So that would be the difference, is that they're all masked on the bus, but as they get over there, if they're not playing in the football game, or if they're not, then
They
they
stay
would.
masked?
Are you talking about substitutes would be masked?
That's right.
in football?
Okay. Pardon me?
A football substitute would be masked? Or are we talking about if they're just observing?
If they're observing, they're gonna be masked.
Okay, but the kid who may go in at any moment,
That would, I
Does
don't
not
think
have a
that.
mask on.
Right. I would feel comfortable with that.
As long as they were outside.
Right, as long
Yeah,
as they're
we're talking
outside.
football, outside, or cross-country.
Right.
Yeah.
So the motion would be to adopt this test to stay and learn policy. And so I guess we need,
It's basically, I think what we're talking about is what we talked about,
It'd be our mask policy.
our mask policy we have now, where.
it's our mask, it follows our mask policy
Right.
now.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And
And,
so it's just adding in the quarantine people so that they can take a daily test and
Right.
and participate.
And still
Okay.
participate.
All
Now,
right,
with
all
the test to learn could be past our mask mandate too. So that's
Correct.
just something,
Correct.
if in October we do away with masks,
right. We would just extend this.
they would follow the mask.
they would still have to mask
They
in
would follow our
school.
mask.
They would have to mask while they were inside. So
Okay.
that's a good
Do
point.
you understand what we're talking about?
So you're saying adopt, test to stay and learn, and as far as extracurricular activities, they are fully masked inside and
Well,
outside?
they would follow the masking policy that we've already got in place for extracurricular activities.
Correct.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt that test to stay policy as discussed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. 10.4 executive session. I need,
I need maybe 10 minutes.
okay, we need
max.
about 20 minutes then. So, do we need a break before we go in or not?
I'm okay.
You okay, Olivia?
I'm fine.
Okay, so we're gonna need a motion to enter executive session for 20 minutes.
Move to go into executive session for 20 minutes to 7:44.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to go into executive session, discuss confidential employee information pursuant to non-elected personnel exception or coma and the exception of employee-employer negotiations under coma at 7:24 for 20 minutes. We'll return back here at 7:44. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are in executive session. Okay, we're back in regular session and moving on to item 10.5, action on personnel.
Okay, we've got two recommendations for employment. Terry Woodward, District Delivery, effective September the 7th, 2021, and Lizette Luan as a Garfield ESOL aide, effective September the 20th of 21. I recommend that you approve those two for employment.
I so
Motion
move.
to approve.
Moved and seconded for those employments. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries.
Okay, there's one resignation for employment. Lachelle Schneider, bus monitor, effective September the 28th, 2021. I recommend that you approve that resignation.
So moved.
Moved and seconded to approve that resignation. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries. No further action on the board or items. We are adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.